Good evening. You are tuned in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim has defended Malaysia's decision to assist in Gaza's reconstruction amid criticism about the country's priorities. The Prime Minister says that the teaching in Islam encourages everyone to help one another, especially for those in Gaza who have endured immense suffering.
Kita tolong orang kampung lain. Orang boleh kata kampung-kampung tak selesai. Tapi dalam Islam dia tidak pernah fikir begitu. Yang kesengsaraan yang dihadapi oleh umat Islam Gaza, Palestin, Arab ini jangan berlaku dalam hidup kita. Sejak Perang Dunia Kedua sampai sekarang, inilah malapetaka paling dahsyat yang menimpa umat Islam.
On Thursday, Anwar announced that Malaysia, alongside the Japanese government, will be aiding in Gaza's reconstruction, starting with building a school, hospital and mosque. Starting tomorrow, around 4.37 million workers nationwide will benefit from the new minimum wage of 1,700 ringgit. The policy applies to employers with 5 or more employees, as well as those engaged in professional activities, regardless of their workforce size. According to the Human Resources Ministry, smaller businesses with fewer than 5 employees have until August 1st to comply. This grace period is meant to help them adjust their salary structures and operations. The new minimum wage covers all workers in Malaysia except domestic workers and apprentices. Employers who fail to comply risk fines between 1,000 and 20,000 ringgit or up to 5 years in prison. Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim has announced an immediate 24 million ringgit allocation to fix infrastructure damaged by the floods in Sabah and Sarawak. He has also instructed the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, to immediately approve an allocation of 1,000 ringgit for each family affected by the tragedy. The number of flood victims have increased to nearly 10,000 in Sarawak as of this evening, while in Sabah, flood victims have increased to more than 5,000. Floods in 5 districts in Sabah did show signs of easing, including in Sandakan, Kota Belud and Telukut. The government has approved 60 million ringgit to expand the Sultan Azlan Shah Airport in Perak. Housing and Local Government Minister Ngako Meng says the expansion is timely as passenger volume has exceeded its capacity. The project will be divided into 2 phases, 8 million ringgit for the first phase and 52 million ringgit for the second. Additionally, the Ipoh City Council will allocate 4 million ringgit to improve entrance and exit routes. Once completed, the airport will be able to accommodate up to 700,000 passengers annually, up from the current 500,000. Nga said there's also plans to explore new flight routes, including Bangkok-Ipoh, Jakarta-Ipoh and Hong Kong-Ipoh following the expansion. Coffee lovers, brace yourselves. If you've noticed that your morning cup of coffee getting more expensive, you are not alone. To help us understand why coffee prices are soaring, Farhana Sheikh joins me now. Farhana, so this is something that's been happening for a while, but I would like to understand a bit more. What is behind the caffeine price surge that we are feeling and witnessing right now?
Well, Cynthia, thank you so much. The short answer to that is climate change. Brazil and Vietnam, the 2 biggest coffee producers in the world right now, have been hit hard by extreme weather, which has wreaked havoc on their crops. Brazil, the largest exporters of Arabica coffee, making up nearly 60% of the world's coffee production last year, went through its worst drought in 70 years, followed by heavy rains that devastated this year's harvest as well. And it doesn't just stop there, because this weather could also threaten next year's crop. As for Vietnam, which is the world's top producer of Robusta coffee, the one you usually get in your instant blends, faced a similar pattern. So a severe drought at one point hit the region, followed by heavy rains damaging their coffee reserves.
All right, so we're seeing tough hits on both fronts, but just how steep are this price increase that we're talking about here?
So quite steep. just yesterday, coffee prices have surged to records high. But it's not anything new, because if you look at the current trend over the past few years, it has been steadily on the rise. So you'll see Arabica coffee prices marked by the red line jumped by 13% in December 2024 compared to the previous month, November. And if you compare that year on year, actually, we're looking at a 60% increase. As for Robusta coffee, marked by the blue line, prices climbed 5% in December last year compared to the month prior. And if you compare that the same time last year, they've actually more than doubled.
Okay, so the numbers or the jump that we are seeing right now on the chart is quite staggering. But what does this mean for us here in Malaysia, or the coffee lovers?
Right. So before we look at how the pinch for coffee lovers, let me give you some context. Malaysia imports most of its coffee from Vietnam, Indonesia, as well as Brazil. So based on DOSM statistics, we consume an average 2.2 kilograms of coffee per person for the whole of 2020. That demand has actually been growing since 2017, up by 5%. So to get a clearer picture of all this and how the price hikes have been affecting brewers and consumers, I actually spoke to Kelvin Ngo, President of Malaysia Specialty Coffee Association. Let's hear what he has to say.
Of course, it's affecting every single roaster here, every single buyer here. And obviously, it's also translating to increased prices on a cafe front towards the consumer. So there is no way, in order to mitigate this between the roasting and also the consumer, cafe have to raise prices. Because cafe is also facing increased costs in many aspects, in labor, other materials as well. So if you don't raise prices, technically, they will be squeezed.
Okay, I guess now the question is, what's the damage here? How much more do we Malaysians have to pay more for a cup of coffee?
I think that's the $1 million question here. So based on my conversation with Kelvin, yes, prices in Malaysia have gone up by at least RM1 a cup. So, but there's also a silver lining here. And here's what Kelvin has to say about the silver lining.
Within this 12-month period, let's say you start in 2023 to end of 2024, the prices are already increased by 100%. So, and I think I currently saw some of the cafe operators, some chains has put up the price something along the lines like $1 a ringgit, which is very reasonable. Moreover, Malaysia, in terms of coffee, we are also one of the lowest price coffee in the whole region. So Singapore is way higher, Indonesia is higher, Thailand is higher. Across the region, Malaysian coffee prices, where you buy a cappuccino or coffee drink, has been low for many, many years. I think it's still very acceptable. We are not expecting a sudden huge jump in the coffee price in any near future. We don't foresee that, because manufacturers are doing their part, cafe operators are doing their part, just to cushion. No, everyone is doing their part to cushion this.
Well, it looks like we may just have to rethink our coffee consumption if prices continue to surge. Thank you so much, Farhana, for that insight.
Thank you,
appreciate it very much. All right, let's take a quick break. We will be back with more after this.
Rambut gugur lagi? Macam mana Gunakan Pantene Baharu dengan provitamin mikro yang meresap dan menguatkan rambut dari dalam. Rambut 10 kali lebih kuat terhadap rambut gugur. Pantene Baharu.
Westar Gap, a joint venture between Westar Aviation and Timor Gap, has signed a contract with Santos Limited an Australian oil and gas company. The agreement was formalized today in Dili, Timor-Leste. Our correspondent, Khalis Kadir, has the details.
Under this agreement, Westar Gap will provide 2 Leonardo AW189 helicopters as part of a $40 million contract spanning 12 months with the option for 2 6-month extensions. In the long term, the company sees potential expansion into the Greater Sunrise field with total project value expected to reach $400 million over the next 10 years.
This partnership, which stands as a testament to the hard work and dedication of both Timor Gap and Westar, represents more than just a business agreement. It is a reflection of our shared vision, growth, sustainability, and regional leadership in the energy sector. Together, we are setting new standards in offshore aviation services, and I'm confident that through our collaboration with Santos, we'll contribute greatly to the success of the Bayu Undang field and its role in the region's energy infrastructure.
This partnership is more than just a business deal. It's a symbol of Malaysia's growing role on the global stage and its commitment to fostering regional economic cooperation. This is the beginning, more to come. I'm Khalis Kadir with cameraman Fahmi Azhar, reporting from Dili, Timor-Leste for Astro AWANI.
Investigators have recovered the black boxes from the American Airlines jet that collided with a U.S. Army helicopter over the Potomac River near Washington, D.C. Authorities, however, have yet to determine the exact cause of the collision. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, says it has gathered a lot of information but needs time to verify details. A preliminary report is expected in 30 days. All 64 passengers on the jet and 3 military crew members on the helicopter were killed in the crash. According to a New York Times report, staffing was thin in the control tower at Reagan National Airport, where the airliner was about to land when the mid-air collision occurred. Air traffic control recordings also reveal that the helicopter pilot was warned about the approaching jet just moments before the collision. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for 2,500 children to be immediately evacuated from Gaza for medical treatment. His remark comes after a meeting with American doctors who said that the children were at imminent risk of death in the coming weeks. The 4 doctors who volunteered in Gaza during the 15-month war between Israel and Hamas highlighted severe medical challenges. One recalled treating a boy whose healed burns left scar tissue cutting off blood flow, risking amputation, while another noted the lack of prosthetics and rehabilitation for child amputees. The doctors are advocating for a centralized medical evacuation process with clear guidelines, which they say is absent under the current ceasefire agreement. Just days before the ceasefire on January 19th, the World Health Organization reported over 12,000 patients awaiting evacuation, with hopes that the truce could accelerate the process. That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching. Good night.